Hey everyone, Kevin here. Today I want to show you how you can use Google Forms. You can use Google Forms to create surveys and also quizzes. There are two things that I love about Google Forms. First off, it's entirely free to use. All you need is a free Google account and you can start creating forms. Also, it's a super intuitive product. It's pretty easy to use. In this video today, we're going to start off with how you can even get Google Forms. Then we'll create a basic survey, we'll add some sections, we'll set up logic so depending on how one of your respondees answers one of the questions, it'll send them to a different section of the survey. Then we'll also look at how you can distribute your survey, and then we'll collect the responses and look at how you can analyze your results. By the end of this video, you'll know how you can use Google Forms end to end. All right, well, let's jump on the PC and let's start building some forms. Here I am on my PC and we want to create a Google form. How do we do that? Head to the website google.com, and once you land on the homepage, up in the top right-hand corner, we have the waffle icon. It kind of looks like a waffle. It's also known as the app launcher. When we click on this, this shows you all of your different Google apps. And you might notice Google Forms is not in this set. To access Google Forms, we need to click into Google Drive. So let's click on this. This drops us on the Google Drive homepage, and up in the top left-hand corner, we have this button that allows us to create new content. When I click on this, we can create all of our typical things like a doc, sheet, slide, and here's the option to create a new Google form. If we click on this, this will drop us into a blank new Google form. Over here, I could also expand this sub menu, and here too, we could jump into a blank form, or I could start from a template. Next, I want to show you one other way, perhaps even a little bit quicker, that you can use to get to Google Forms. Up here in the address bar, simply type in forms.google.com and then hit enter. This drops us onto the Google Forms homepage. And if you've ever used docs, sheets, or slides before, this probably looks very familiar. Google intentionally uses the same layout across all of these different products. Up in the top left-hand corner, you can start with a blank new form. So you're just starting from scratch and you have to build it up. Also, over on the right-hand side, you have all of these different templates. It's worth a look to see if maybe there's a template that already does what you're trying to do. That way you could save a little bit of time. Up here, you can view the template gallery, which expands the set, and you can see even more templates. I'm going to go back to the home page. Over here, let's say that I want to get back to an existing form. Down below, I can see all of my different recent forms. I also have some different filters and options to change how I visualize these forms. Also, let's say I start getting a lot of forms here. I can also use search to get back to the specific form that I'm looking for. All right, well, we came here today to create a new form, so let's go down here and let's start with a blank form. This now drops us into a blank new Google form, and we can use this screen here to start building out our survey or quiz or whatever it is that you want to build out. By default, we land on the questions tab, and we're going to use this to build out our survey. There's also another tab called responses, but we haven't gotten any responses yet. We haven't even built our survey yet. So later on in this video, we'll come back to what we can do with that. But for now, we need to give our form a title. Right now, it's untitled form. That's not very useful. Now, I've been meaning to create a viewer satisfaction survey for my YouTube channel for some time. So I'm going to use this video to create that. Feel free to follow along and create your own form, or you could even mimic what I'm doing just to learn the ropes of how you can use Google Forms. Here, I'll type in viewer satisfaction survey. Under the title, you can also type in a form description, and I'll type in a little bit of text that just gives a little bit more context on what this survey is even about. I'll just say, let me know what you think about my channel. So this provides the framework for what this survey is about, and now I can start adding some questions. To add my first question, Google was nice enough to insert just a placeholder question here. So I'll just go ahead and leverage this for my first question. I can click on that and it now highlights this question. Here, one of the things you'll see is I can click on the title and it highlights this item, or I could click down here and now it highlights this question. And right here, I have a text field where I can type in what my question is. For the very first question, I want to know, are you even subscribed to the Kevin Stratvert YouTube channel? So I'll just go in and type in this question. Now, one thing that's really neat is I get these different suggestions. So Google looks at this question and it detects that it's a yes, no, or a maybe question. So it gives me all of these options. So I could go through and I could type in yes, no, or maybe, or I could click on add all, and that inserts all of these different options. So it makes it really quick to start building my survey. Now that I've put a few different choices in, over to the right of this, I also have the option to insert an image along with this question. So maybe someone doesn't quite know what the Kevin Stratvert YouTube channel is, or maybe they don't know what it's referring to. So let me click on add image just so I could add a visual cue. This now opens up the Google File Picker, and I can choose where I want to insert the picture from. Now, I just have the picture on my desktop, so I'll just drag and drop it over into this screen, and this will upload the photo. And here I see the photo, and it's now been integrated into this question. So the neat thing is not only can I ask just text questions, but I could also include images. I could also insert videos here, so you can include all sorts of multimedia alongside your question. Right up on top, right next to the icon that I use to insert this image, we have this drop-down list. And here I can click on this to decide what type of question this even is. And by default, it was set to multiple choice. And it just so happens to turn out that multiple choice is the right option for this. I want someone to choose yes or no, but I don't want them to choose both. So multiple choice actually makes sense here. But I could choose things like short answer, a paragraph answer, checkboxes, drop down. I could have a file upload, and there are all sorts of different types that I can insert in. As we run through this video today, we'll insert a few of these different types just so you can see how they work. But for now, a multiple choice works just fine for my needs. When I look down below, here I see all of my different entries, yes, no, maybe. I can click on these and I can shift the position. So maybe I want no first, maybe I want yes first. Now I'm expecting that most people probably are subscribed. I mean, who wouldn't be? So you might as well have the easiest option first. So I'll leave yes in the first position. One of the things that's neat as well is as I hover over yes, over on the right hand side here you'll see an image icon. So I can add an image to each one of these different responses. Now I don't need to do it for this case, but maybe your scenario requires that. Also over on the right hand side, I could remove options if maybe I added an option that I didn't mean to include. All right, well, I think this question now is looking pretty good and I'm ready to start adding more questions. While I have this item selected, over on the right hand side, you'll see I have all of these different options. I could add another question. I could also import a question from another form. I could insert a title and description, an image, a video, also another section. And a little later, we'll come back and we'll use some of these. But for now, I just want to insert another question. So I'll click on this plus icon. When I click on that, it inserts the new question immediately underneath this previous question. Now, one of the neat things is, let's say I want to insert a question up here. I could select the header up here, and here I get the same controls. Here, if I click on add question, it'll insert it right underneath. Now, I don't want a question there, so I'll delete this one, but just to show you that you can decide where you want to insert different objects or items on your form. For my next question, if someone answers no to this question, well, I want to know why they said no. So for this question, let me ask that. Let me ask, tell me more about why you haven't subscribed. And right over here, I can choose the type of question. Now, multiple choice doesn't make sense here. Maybe paragraph makes sense. I could also go with short answer, but maybe someone has something to say. So I want to make sure I allow a little bit of space to type something out. So I'll select paragraph right here. And right down here, you'll see that it allows a long answer text. And this looks pretty good. With this new question, one of the things you might notice is, well, someone might come in, they'll answer this first question, and right now the way it's designed, regardless of whether you say yes, no, or maybe, everyone will drop on this next question. And if you say yes or maybe, well, it doesn't make sense to have to answer this question because you are subscribed. What are you going to say? So I want to set up some logic so only the people who say no see this question, and everyone else who says yes or maybe, they simply bypass this question and go on to the next section. To help me with this, I need to insert sections. I'm going to select this question, and here I can insert different items. And at the very bottom of this list, I have the option to insert or add a section. I'm going to click on that and I'll add a section here. So now I have two sections. By default, this initial view or section here is created, and now I have a second section. Now I want this question that I just added to be in this new section, and luckily I can easily drag and drop items around. So here I can select this question and I'll drag it down so it sits within section 2. Right up here, you'll see that the section currently doesn't have a name. I'll click into here and let me just call it I'm not a current subscriber. So this will help me know that if someone clicks on no, well then they're going to drop into section 2 and they'll get this one question here. I also want to add another section. So this way, if someone says yes or maybe, they'll bypass section 2 and then they'll go on to section 3, which contains all of the remaining questions. Now, once again, just like we've been doing all along, select the last item here and then we can add another section, and this will place the section underneath the previous one. So now we have section 3. And for section 3, I'm going to give it a really original name and I'll call it additional questions. So this will have all of the remaining questions that everyone will answer. Okay, so we now have 3 different sections set up and we're almost there, but we just have to add a little bit of logic so this works how we expect it to. I'm going to go back up to the very first question that I added, and down here at the bottom we have some different controls that we can use. And to add logic here, I'll click on the ellipsis, and here's an option that says go to section based on answer. And that's exactly what we want. Once again, if you click on no, you'll go to section 2. If you click yes, maybe, or if you just skip this question, we'll send you off to section 3. So let's click on this. When I click on this, next to each response here, I now have a new option with a dropdown. And here for, let's say someone says yes, I can choose what section I want to send this respondent to. So if you say yes, well, I don't want you to go to section 2. That's the I'm not a current subscriber. So I want to send them directly to additional questions. For the no response, well, in that case, they're not a subscriber. So I want them to answer that question on why they're not a subscriber. So I'll send this user on to section 2. Here, for someone who says maybe, well, I'll just pretend that maybe they said yes, and we'll send them on to section 3. So here too, I'll select section 3. What's interesting is you could just have someone go to the next section. You can also have it just submit the form. So maybe someone responds with no, and at that point, you just don't want any more feedback from that user. You can just submit the form and call it good. Now for maybe, once again, let me go to section 3. Down below, there's also the question that says after section 1, and here too, I could decide what happens. Now, let's say that someone goes through and this question is not required. So right now, someone doesn't have to fill this in. They could simply skip this question. So right here, I have to define what happens if someone skips this question. And I'm going to pretend that, well, if someone skips this question, maybe they are a subscriber. So I don't want to ask them why they're not a subscriber. So in this case, I'll also send the user onto section 3 if they decide not to answer this question. So here you can see all the logic that's currently in place, and I think this all looks good. Of course, just because I think it looks good doesn't actually mean that it's going to work correctly, but luckily we can test it out to make sure that everything works as we expect it to. If we go to the very top, we have this eyeball icon, or basically the preview icon. When I click on this, this will open up the survey and I can now preview what it looks like. So here I see section 1, and I can't see any of the other sections. There are other sections. So here if I click on yes, let's click on next. And look at that, it brings me to the additional questions. If I click on back, let's test it out if I click on no. Here I'll click on next, and now I get the question that says, well, tell me why not. I'll go back again, I'll click on maybe, let's click on next. That brings me to additional questions, and let's say that here I'm going to clear the selection. Let's say I don't choose anything at all and I click on next. This will bring me to additional questions. So this way I can just check and verify that the logic is working exactly how I expect it to. So it's always a good practice when you set it up just to test it out. Go through the different options and just make sure it's working how you expect it to. Now that we've verified that it's working just like we want it to, let's go down and see what some of the other options are for each question. Here I'll go down and we can duplicate a question. So if I click on that, just like the name implies, you can create a duplicate. Maybe you're pulling together a survey or a quiz and you want to base a new question off of an older one, you can simply duplicate it. Now, I didn't want to do that. I don't want to ask this question twice. So I'll click on the trash can or the delete icon and that'll simply get rid of it. Also, if we look over here, you can decide to make a question required, so people coming through have to respond to it. Now, I don't want to force people to answer this question, so I'll leave it off by default. Right next to this, I also have the ellipsis, and this is where we turned on the section based on answer. So we used that earlier, but what else can we do here? Up at the top, we can add a description to this question. So when I click on description here, maybe I could type in a little bit more context to help with answering this question. Now, I don't need a description, so I'll turn that off, and that line now disappears. Also, if I go back, there's one more option called Shuffle Option Order. So let's turn that on to see what it does. And once again, I'll go back to preview mode and let's check this out. Within preview mode, look at the order of the options. So it says no, yes, and maybe. Here, if I refresh the page, now it starts with maybe, yes, and no. So by selecting that option, it'll just randomize the order of the different options. Now, sometimes if maybe you have yes in the first position, it'll cause more people to choose it. So this way it randomizes it and it gives every option a fair chance. So not a bad practice to use that setting. Now, we've been looking at a lot of the different functionality here, but I have a deadline to create my form, so I need to start adding some more questions. Once again, let's go all the way to the bottom, and here I have my new section called additional questions, but I don't have any additional questions. So once again, let's click on this section, and right here I can click on the plus icon again to add yet another question. And for this one, I want to know, what video would you like to most see next? This helps me prioritize what videos to create. And it's not a multiple choice question. I'm going to select this and maybe I'll go with a short answer. So I'll select this so someone could just type in some text. With this question, I have a similar set of controls on the bottom. However, there is one new one. Here, if I click on the ellipsis, I can perform response validation. What does that mean and what does that do? Well, depending on what someone enters in here, I can check to make sure that it meets my criteria. So I can validate based on a number, text, length, or even an expression. So let's just take an example here. Maybe I want to validate based on text. So maybe when people enter something in here, I really want them to have it be a Kevin baking video. Not Kevin Bacon, a Kevin baking video. So over here in the text, I can type in Kevin baking video, and this way, if someone doesn't type that in, it won't be a correct response, and maybe I don't let them move on to the next question until they enter this. Now, of course, this example is a little absurd. I want someone to type in what they want to see next, but this is just to show that you can validate what people enter in this field. I'll click on the X for now, just to remove the validation step. Let's continue building out this survey, and I'll click on the plus icon to once again add another question. For this question, I want to insert a Likert scale, basically a 1 to 10 scale. So I'll click over here, and here's the option for a linear scale. I'll select that option, and for the question, I want to know, how likely are you to recommend this channel to a friend or colleague? Hopefully you're very likely to recommend it, but I'll leave it up to you. Over here, you can choose what your scale is. And maybe I'll have it on a scale from 1 to 10. And over here, I can type in 2 labels. I've now typed in my 2 different labels. I don't know why I wasted time typing in a label for number 1. No one's going to select that, but I might as well fill that out. Now, one of the really neat things is now that I've started adding more questions to this form, I can very easily move these different items around. Let's say that actually I want to start with this question in the additional questions section. I can click up here, and here I can move it up. Or maybe I wanted this other one before that, I could simply move that one up, so I can drag and drop the items all around my form to put it in the best position. Next, I want to throw in another question, so once again, I'll go to the last item here, I'll click on the plus icon, and let me type in my question. This is actually a really good question if you're working on a product. Ask your customer or ask your user, if you had a magic wand, what is one thing you would want to improve? You actually get all sorts of really awesome feedback. When I worked at Microsoft, we asked this question all the time, and we actually got some really good ideas on how we can improve things. So an excellent question to always include. Right over here, it detects that it's a paragraph question, so here it gives me that option here, and I'll accept a long answer text. Next, I want to add one more question, but instead of inserting just a brand new question and creating it from scratch, I want to import a question. So here I'll click on the import question option. On this screen, I can see all of my other forms that I have in Google Forms. And over here's a previous form that I created, and I have a question that I want to reuse. I'll select this one. Over here now, I can choose what question I want to take from this other form. And here I have the question, do you have any other feedback you'd like to share? And it's a paragraph question. Next, I'll click on import question and look at that. It just inserts it in. So let's say you've created other forms and you have questions you want to reuse. Google Forms makes it extremely easy to bring your question in. We're getting near the end of this survey and I want to insert one more item. Right over here in this insert menu, we have 3 that we haven't touched yet. You can insert a title and description, an image, and also a YouTube video. Here, I want to insert some text, and I simply want to thank people for taking the time to share their feedback. Whether feedback is positive or feedback is negative, all feedback is a gift, and so I want to make sure I thank people for that. I'm now all done building out my survey, and there are a few things that I want to do before I start distributing this survey. Up in the top left-hand corner, you'll see that right now it's called an untitled form, and that's not that descriptive. I'll retitle this, let's call it the Viewer Satisfaction Survey. So now my document has a name. Over here, I can also choose where I want to save it in Google Drive. So maybe I want to place it somewhere else, I can do that. I could also star the form, this way it's easier to get back to within Google Drive. All the way over on the right-hand side, I have some additional options. The first one allows me to customize the theme. Here, I can choose an image for my header. I can choose one of these images that Google provides. I could upload my own, or I could choose an existing photo from my Google Drive. Or right down here, I can choose a theme color. Now, I always found that blue is a pretty calming color, so I'll choose blue as my theme color. Here too, I can adjust the background color, maybe I go with that one. And right down here, I can change the fonts as well, so I can adjust the look and feel of my form. Back up on the right-hand side in the top corner, here we have the option to preview again, and earlier we used this to make sure that our logic was working as we expected it to. And to the right of that, there's a settings gear. Let's click into this to see what we can configure. Within settings, there are some different general settings, and you can take a look at this to see if any of them are useful for your scenario. We also have some different presentation settings that you can configure. One of the interesting ones is you can have it shuffle your question order. So this way, maybe the first question's not always first. So once again, maybe that helps randomize and remove some bias. Now, over on the far right-hand side, this is an interesting one called quizzes. You can turn your Google form into a quiz. We're going to take a look at this at a very high level, but you could definitely go deeper into this. Here, I could hit this toggle to turn it into a quiz. And here I have a few different settings related to quizzes. You can take a look at these to see which ones make sense for you. Once we turn this on, let's click on Save. Back on the main form, I can click on one of these questions, and because I now turned it into a quiz, I have a new option down here that says Answer Key. When I click on that, I can decide how many points I want to assign to this question. So maybe this is a 50-point question. This is an important one, so let's enter 50. Down below, I can also select what the correct answer is. And for this one, there is only one correct answer. It's yes. Right down here, I can add answer feedback. So if someone enters in an incorrect answer, I could type in some feedback. I could even include a link. I could even include a video. So maybe I say, why wouldn't you be subscribed to this channel? And I could include one of my YouTube videos so they could watch the video and then redecide whether it was the best choice not to be subscribed. Over here, maybe someone types in the correct answer. I could provide feedback there as well. So with quizzes, there's lots of functionality there, and you can build out some really rich quizzes. I'm going to go back up to settings, I'll go back into quizzes, and for now I'll turn this off. Back up in the top right-hand corner, we have even more settings. If we click on this ellipsis, look, there's more functionality here. And the one that I want to call out is right down here in the middle called Add Collaborators. You can have other people work with you to pull together your survey or your quiz. Why do it alone? Why not enlist the help of others? Now that we've looked at some of the different settings that you can configure, how do we get this survey out to people so they can start filling it out? Well, right up here, also in the top right-hand corner, we have the send icon. And when I click on this, I can send out my survey in several different ways. I can send an email message. I could also copy the link. Here I could shorten the URL if I want it to be a little bit more concise and pithy. Also, over here, I can get HTML code so I can embed this form into a website. Maybe you have a Google Sites. You can take this code and you can bring it to your Google site and then you can embed it. Also, tucked away over on the right-hand side, I can share it directly to Facebook or I can share it directly to Twitter. So there's no shortage of ways for you to share your form with others and to start getting feedback. Now that we know how to share our survey and to have other people start filling it out, let's see what their experience looks like. And to access that, I'm going to go to the top right-hand corner and let's click on Preview. Let's run through this survey and actually fill it out to see how it all works. Are you currently subscribed? Well, of course I am. Who wouldn't be? Next. Oh, right up here, what video would you most like to see next? Well, I'd love to see a video of Kevin baking cookies. That would be epic. Right down here, how likely are you to recommend the channel to a friend or colleague? Is this even a question? That's a clear number 10. Right down here, if you had a magic wand and can improve one thing about this channel, what would you improve? Well, I guess it would be nice if I got a free cookie for every video I watch. So I guess that's one thing that could be improved. And down below, do you have any other feedback you'd like to share? I don't know, keep going. Right here, I can go back again, or I could submit my form. Let's click on Submit. Once I submit my form, here it looks like the response has been recorded. So that looks great. This is good. Back now on the main form screen, here we are in the questions view, and this is where we created and edited all of our different questions. But someone now went through the survey and they submitted a response. And over here now, I can see that there has been one response to this survey. I can click on responses and here I can review the results. Within responses, there are many different ways that I can review the different results. And here the first tab is called Summary, and this gives me a summary view of all of the different responses. So here I could go through and I could see the different questions and I can see overall what people thought. Here I could go up and I can also go through question by question to see what the different responses were. Or I can click on individual and here I could go through each individual response and I can see their responses in the survey form. Now overall, these three different views really show you what's going on with your form or your survey. However, sometimes you just want the power of a spreadsheet to dig through all the different responses. Right up here in the top right-hand corner, I can create a spreadsheet using Google Sheets. If I click on this, I can create a new spreadsheet. Let's click on Create and test this out. And check that out. I now have a new spreadsheet and it'll show me every single response to my survey in a new row. And over here across all of these columns, I see all of my different questions. So this is yet another way to view all of the different responses to your form. Back now within Google Forms, maybe Google Sheets really isn't your cup of tea. You can also click on the ellipsis and you can download a CSV. So maybe you're a Microsoft Excel person and you'd rather look at the responses there, you can download the CSV. I know that me personally, I'm an Excel person, so I'd probably do this to review all of my results. Back now on this main screen, there is one toggle which is a good one to know about. Currently, my survey is turned on, so anyone can come in and start submitting responses. But let's say that maybe I got enough responses or maybe I don't want to respond to feedback anymore. I know not everyone loves this channel. I can simply turn off the feedback and now it's not accepting responses anymore. So the form is basically turned off. So here I could toggle it both on and off. We've now looked at all of the core functionality of Google Forms, and luckily as you're going through this and you're getting responses and you're adding questions, you don't have to save it. All of this was created directly in the cloud and it's basically all saved as you go through it. To get back to the home page, right up here in the top left-hand corner, we have the Google Forms icon. If I click on that, that'll bring me right back to where we started, where we could create another form, and here we see all of our recent forms. So right now we're back to the beginning, but that's how you can use Google Forms end to end. All right, well, that's how easy it is to create a survey or a quiz using Google Forms. If this video helped you, please give it a thumbs up. To see more videos like this in the future, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, if you want to see me cover any other topics on this channel, leave a note down below. All right, well, that's all I had for you today. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I hope to see you next time. Bye.